In football, there's nothing more impressive than when two of the highest skill expression positions join forces to do one of the hardest things in this sport. And I'm talking about the throw and catch, quarterback and wide receivers. And when the perfect ball is thrown in a spot where literally only the wide receiver can get to it, you get not only one of the most improbable catches, but the pinnacle of an unguardable throw to begin with, which we can track with advanced stats. So today we're going to go through and find some of the most unguardable passes using some of the advanced statistics we have, because they're so hard to guard that they pretty much almost had no chance of being caught to begin with. And immediately coming in with our 10th best pass, we're going to take it back to 2022 when the Panthers were taking on the Steelers, and as you can tell, it's at number 10 for a reason. It's only about a 7-yard pass from the line of scrimmage, but it's going to do a great job of setting the tone because this defender is in great position as Sam Darnold rolls out, and despite literally having a player draped over his back, Sam places this ball about 1.5 yards out of bounds, where DJ Moore, through a slight extension, is able to come down with it, where the leverage that the coverage player had to have to even attempt to guard this pass properly would have been through an egregious pass interference. This had a completion probability of 7.8%, making it actually tied with a throw from Dak Prescott, where against the Vikings, he's looking downfield for Amari Cooper and heaves. This time, the defender's able to be underneath the play with another defender coming down over the top, but both give up on what appears to be a ball chucked out of bounds just to see Cooper reach for it and somehow manage to keep his feet in bounds in the only window that wouldn't have been picked off or gotten Amari slaughtered. But at our number 9 spot, the odds get even more slim as Justin Herbert, in the middle of a smackdown against the Broncos, is forced out of the pocket and he's rolling to his left, where he finds a hope and a prayer in the back of the end zone. So he throws it up, and by God, most people wouldn't be able to make this throw if they were standing at the goal line, much less 37 yards away from his intended target. But he places it not only perfectly between triple coverage, with the ball inches away from 3 different defenders' hands, but in a spot where Cook would have had to catch it falling backwards but still be able to keep his feet in bounds, combining pinpoint accuracy with great awareness by the receiver to once again show that no matter how good these defenders are, there are just some passes that you have no chance of defending outside of a blatant PI, as the completion probability on this one has dropped to 7.2%. But if you think the accuracy on those are impressive, they honestly don't hold a candle to number 8, where Mac Jones and the Patriots are taking on the Ravens in week 3 of 2022 season. He's looking to throw the ball to Parker, but as the camera pans, we see that Parker is facing side to a defender who has perfect leverage there, and it looks like it's going to have to be a tough contested catch until in a flash Parker flips his hips and catches the ball on what appears to be 1 yard out of bounds mid-spin, looks, gets his feet down and bounds, and leaves the cornerback wondering what the hell else was he supposed to do, as he was literally in his pocket the whole way. This throw was just made perfectly out of bounds, but still just in reach of his receiver, who made a miraculous toe tap catch, which comes out to it having a 6.8% probability, which is still quite a bit higher than a throw from just this year, still against this Ravens, but this time with Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew, who was at the helm and is going to make another appearance on this list later. But when he's forced out of the pocket, needing to keep the drive alive in order to stay in this game, he sees Devontae Adams completely stuck with a defender on one side and the boundary on the other. Where usually you would just throw this ball away, Minshew decides to throw it in a spot that is so unbelievable the corner doesn't even bother trying to contest it, because the risk of a PI is higher than the risk of Adams catching this one. Unfortunately for him, there's a reason Minshew tried this throw with Adams, who stretches out a full 2 yards out of bounds, going completely horizontal while making this catch and keeping his feet in bounds in a pass that you just cannot do a single thing about, as even the receiver only had a 6.1% chance of catching it, which honestly seems like great odds when you compare it to number 6 on our list, where I take you to the Seahawks taking on the Rams, and we see Russell Wilson in his first mention on this one, as he once again is getting forced out of the pocket, but sees Tyler Lockett in the back of the end zone. And I just want you to see where the defender is on this one. His feet are close to being tangled up with Lockett's. He's directly in this guy's hip pocket, playing anything that would be in play and in front of Lockett, because there's only a foot of space behind him and no space to his right side, as that's the boundary. But this ball is perfectly over the defender's head at the absolute edge of where Lockett can reach out of bounds and bring it in while keeping his feet somehow in play. I mean, there's almost no way way as a defender, you can play this tighter and better, as there was maybe a 3-foot window where this ball isn't incomplete or picked off. Also, Lockett has to find that window and still come down with it while falling down and keeping his feet in bounds at an unbelievable 5.3% chance of this happening. But before we get into the top 5, there were 2 plays I really wanted to take a look at, but unfortunately the advanced stat in this category only goes back to 2018, and the 2 plays that I really wanted to see was the Falcons Super Bowl catch and the Steelers Super Bowl catch. And I don't really need to say much more about them, but for what it's worth, let's get into them real quick. Matt Ryan's Super Bowl pass to Julio Jones was the one where there was one of the tiniest windows found over top of a defender who was in great positions and out of bounds to make a completely uncontestable catch. And the second one being another Super Bowl pass from Ben Roethlisberger to Santonio Holmes that not only was an amazing game-winning touchdown pass where he literally finds the perfect spot in the middle of triple coverage boxed in by the back and side of the end zone, but Holmes on top of that catches it while getting shoved out of bounds and taking on contact. So as we move into our top 5, just start thinking about where you would place these 2 catches at, and if you want, even give me a completion probability down in the comments and let me know where you would rank them as we kind of move through the rest of this list. So with that out of the way, it brings us to number 5, where we're going back to the same person who brought us number 7, as Gardner Minshew, who is currently playing for the Eagles, is taking on the Cowboys, and he steps back and sees Devontae Smith, but there's a problem. Devontae did beat his man, but there's a safety over top to help and is closing in fast. If Minshew throws his ball ahead of Smith or inside of him, it could be a hospital ball, and if it's underthrown, the corner who Smith beat could make a play on it. But where he put it was in the safest place for Smith, but nowhere near as impressive as the play that Smith would have to make to get this ball, as he was expecting it inside, but sees it outside, so does a full 180, catching it mid-spin while getting his head around to make sure that he toe taps, which is why there was only a 5.2% chance of Smith coming down with it, and why both these defenders were left speechless watching this play out in front of them. But not as speechless as when in 2022, Tom Brady got to put his only play on this list out there. While leading a 2-minute drill to take the lead against the Panthers, he looks over and sees Perriman has good leverage on his defender, so he does what Tom Brady does best and puts the ball on a postage stamp, far enough out of bounds that the defender doesn't even try to contend the ball, and the refs assume it's incomplete until after the review comes in because of how unreal of a pass it was to completely deny the corner a chance of making a play on this ball with only a 5% catch rate. But as we break down into the number 3 spot, we get to see Bryce Young in a rough season for once get a clean pocket, so he does exactly what got him drafted in the first place and sees that there's about a post-it note size window on the outside of DJ Chark's shoulder. Now, this defender is not just in great position, but arguably perfect position, as there's nowhere on a normal human catch radius where that corner can't contest it. Unfortunately, this was the perfect storm because Chark gets to make a full extension almost backwards and out of bounds and catch the ball with a defender just wondering what else he could have done, as this ball only had a 4.7% completion odds. But it does get harder to guard, as our number 2 on this list takes us to the ever up and down Jameis Winston. This year, Jameis is leading a 2-minute drill with a game on the line, and he throws maybe one of the best balls of his career. Yes, the defender isn't particularly close, but even if he was, there's no way he's going to be able to get this ball with it being where it is, as his own receiver has to stop his momentum and just barely keep his feet inside the white. The only thing that makes this play funnier is that it was immediately followed up by an underthrown pass to Moore once again, where this time it was picked off and Moore forgets to down the defender, resulting in an ugly pick 6 to end the game. Like I said, high variability when it comes to the Browns, but the initial throw and catch had a 4.3% chance of being completed, probably because of who was throwing and catching, but it's still nothing compared to number 1, where we get our second Russell Wilson throw against the Buffalo Bills, where he's immediately chased out of the pocket. He's spinning, he's trying to create space and backpedaling before he realizes he just needs to get the ball out and sees a hope and a prayer in the back of the end zone. It's Courtland Sutton. The only problem is that he's got a guy tap dancing on his toes and another defender directly in front of him. But this doesn't deter Wilson, who puts this ball in a spot where if Sutton puts his toes directly next to the white with almost no space between his feet and out of bounds, and then leans about 3 feet out of bounds, he has a chance to make this catch even though a defender is pushing him out of bounds. But to that defender's dismay, and the dismay of every Bills fan, that is exactly what happens. As every defensive coach in the nation just shook their head and wanted to pat that corner on the back and say there was nothing more you could have done about it, as it only had a 3.2 chance of being completed. But this begs the question now, where would you put the Julio Jones and Santonio Holmes passes? Well, I think it's pretty clear that Julio's completion would be somewhere in like that 3 to 6 range in ranking. It's an insane grab and he has to full extend to it, and it's similar to Minshew's pass to Smith and Young's pass to Chark. But that Santonio Holmes pass, I think, is pretty clear that it would be a number one. Not only are there more defenders around him and closer, while it's equally as good of a ball, but he has less room behind him, forcing that ball to be even more precise, and he's being contacted as it's being caught on a stage that is significantly higher, which, screw it, I'm going to factor that in. I'm sad I don't have the percentage for it, but what pass do you wish you could have some of the stats on? Let me know in the comments, and peace.
I don't even know how Russell Wilson thought he could fit that ball in there.